So we're moving on to our next presentation. I'm going to introduce Summer and Chris from GuidePoint. Really want to thank GuidePoint for being a continual sponsor here in Higher Ground. I want to apologize publicly to GuidePoint that the wrong presenters are in the brochure. The non-technical person not able to handle the conference organizing platform. It just wasn't that great for my technical ability. So I'm going to let Chris and Summer explain who they are and why they're here, but it's a success story from last year's Higher Ground, so take it away, Chris and Summer.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So can you all hear me okay? There we go. So we have a lot to cover, so let's just hop to the introduction so we can get started. So as mentioned, my name is Chris Madalena. I'm a senior security consultant with GuidePoint Security. Working with red team assessments, pen testing, some tool developments, and this is my colleague.
All right, I'm Summer Lee. I'm also a senior security consultant for the threat and attack simulation team for GuidePoint Security. I specialize in mostly social engineering, so I do the remote and the on-site red team or social engineering. I'm pretty much like the success story for Hiring Grounds for GuidePoints. I came here last year. I was actually in line to do my tech review for another company, and I noticed there's shiny things at the booth at the GuidePoint Security. You see those shiny bottle openers? They're bottle openers, by the way. But I ended up making my way over there and meeting AJ. And when we talked a little bit, and I realized, oh, this guy is pretty awesome. He's in a director level position, but he could run circles around me on anything pen testing. And so we started talking. I then met Victor here, who is our manager for my team. They took me downstairs, gave me 2 interviews. I did my tech interview with Victor, and they bought me bourbon at the bar, made me feel comfortable. I was like, all right, I like this company. And I totally just didn't even finish my other interview. I just decided to go with GuidePoint. And they picked me up, that Thursday I had the offer letter. So it's pretty awesome. So that's my story. Basically, we're going to go over, during our presentation, we're going to have a little different format. Chris here is going to go over the interviewer's point of view. I'm going to go over the interviewee's point of view through these talking points. So I'll hand it back over to Chris.
Yeah, and I actually had a similar experience this summer. Last year here at BSides Las Vegas, I came in a little bit early for DEF CON and ended up being brought in by a coworker of mine now. At the time, just a friend, Ben, his name was Ben. He introduced me to AJ via email, and we got talking at kind of a after hours happy hour here at DEF CON, BSides Las Vegas, and just talking to him, like Summer said, able to kind of run circles around us. Technically, it was a really good conversation. He introduced me to one of our other managing consultants at Donahoe. We talked for a while, and after a while, that 20-minute talk turned into, we're talking for like a couple hours, and we kind of continued that afterwards, and ended up moving over to GuidePoint, within about a month after that. So, definitely, a great team that we have, and that was kind of been our experience of once we got talking to people and we were made comfortable and got discussing about the opportunities, it was an easy transition. So why is it not? There we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's fun.
You have a meeting in a few.
Do I?
You have a presentation that's going to go on right now.
We were disconnected from the darknet demon. Oh no. There we go. So as Summer mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of from the hiring manager side, and then we'll switch over to Summer to talk about the interviewee. And one of the things that's important for us when we're hiring someone is we want to make sure that the jobs that we're talking about, that we're putting out there, are well defined, and we don't have any kind of nonsense in there. Again, one of the things that we often see made fun of in this industry are things like asking for a CISP for what really, once you dig into it, it's basically an entry-level job. Or saying that you want 10 years experience or 5 years experience with something that's really only been around for a couple of years. So we want to make sure that we wow the interviewee as they're coming in, that they're actually interested in the job, that they actually want to apply for it because they understand it very well. They know exactly what that job's going to entail. The job description is accurate. and it's asking for reasonable things. And one of the key things there is just making sure that whoever's writing that job description understands the role very, very well. It can be HR, it can be whoever normally does that, as long as they understand the job. Oftentimes, we have people get involved from those departments actually say, here's really what we need, here's what we're looking for, and they help define that role before we put it out there.
All right, and from the interviewee's perspective, you want to focus on the description that they added, or the tools that they added in their description. Highlight that, and if you haven't worked with those tools, spin up a lab, try it out, and then during your interview, talk about the tools that are familiar, that you have used, that are similar to what they're currently using. And also talk about the research that you have done. Now, I can give you a little backstory to that. When I was interviewing with GuidePoint, before then I made a role change, and so I went from being a pen tester to a full social engineer. So I was just calling people on the phone. My technical skills then got put on hold. I was kind of lacking in that area by that point. And so I actually went in, did some research. I had my lab spun up, and so during my interview, I let them know, like, hey, I'm a little lacking on the technical skills right now, but these are the things that I'm doing, and that kind of, and we went through like the projects that I'm working on, the research projects I'm working on, things I'm building, and that kind of helped me through the interview. Another thing too that I wanted to bring up was also smile as you speak, because a lot of times I've interviewed people before when I was in a management position, and they'll just be sitting there and talking to me, and they just got that very sad look on their face, or very nervous and so on. But if you smile, then it sounds better coming across. Also, if you're doing it over the phone, remember to smile then. So go ahead, Chris.
So the other important thing is making sure you pick a location where your interview is going to be comfortable. So kind of like in our stories early on, we kind of walked into it. We were meeting face to face, and so there was kind of some impromptu interviews there, at least kind of getting to know each other in a comfortable location. We were kind of just here, kind of having some drinks, hanging out, both sides being very comfortable, able to read body language face to face, and that can be very important. A lot of people just default to using the phone. But if you have a local candidate or someone who is local to that candidate who can come up and meet them, or you're at a conference, something like that, where you're in a position to meet with them face to face, feel free to suggest that to the interviewee and see what they feel comfortable with. Because that can really help out. You can see body language. No one feels weird if there's, we've all been on conference calls where someone forgets to, unmute themselves, or they stay muted while they find the unmute key so they can respond. And when you're the interviewee, it can feel kind of awkward and weird when you say something, or maybe you try to crack a joke and there's just silence. So, trying to make sure that people are comfortable and they understand what they're walking into. So try to be considerate. Work with them, find out what they're comfortable with. If they're comfortable with the phone, they don't want to meet you face to face yet, go with the phone. Try to work with them rather than what works best for you.
Now, from the interviewee position, I've been given the opportunity to pick my location. Like here, I said, hey, let's go meet down by the bar so we can drink and do my tech review, right? Feel comfortable there. So if they give you the option, take it. Don't say, oh yeah, phone is fine. You probably want to meet them in person, because that's going to be your hiring manager most likely. And you're able to read their body language. When you ask them questions, you can get a better feel for the company, because you're also, in a way, interviewing them as well as, do I really want to work for this company? So take the opportunity, suggest your local hackerspace. I put that picture up there. It's up there. Yeah, great. Go ahead, Chris.
Sure. Then, of course, you want to try to arrange a good interview. So once you have the location, and try to message what the interview is going to be like to the interviewee. We definitely want to involve the team when we're interviewing someone. So, because like Summer said, the interviewee is kind of interviewing you to see if they're going to be a good fit, if they like your company, and it goes both ways. So involve the team, because those are the people they're going to be working with. Involve some people from that department, that team, whatever it might be. If they're available, have them come in with their own questions so they can talk and chit-chat. Allow that time for them to kind of feel each other out, both the interviewee and the team they might be working with. Because in the end, if there's not a good fit there, or there's not much chemistry, the interviewee might be able to pick up on that, and maybe they walk away, or they really like the team, and that can actually kind of energize them to interact more with the team, and you get more out of them, and you have a better interview, and everyone's happy and more comfortable in the end. So also, when you're involving the team, be prepared for both the team and the hiring manager. If it's you, everyone on that call, or coming to that bar, wherever you're going to have the interview, be prepared to answer some questions that might come up, like questions about the team. Was the team downsized recently? Is that why there's now openings? Was someone fired? Was someone promoted? Are you expanding so you have more positions? Because all that really plays into, from the interviewee side, of depending on do they want the job. Because if you just fired someone, they're going to come in, why were they fired? Why did they leave? If they left, were they unhappy? Or if they were promoted, cool, so there's promotion opportunities. If you're growing, even better, because that means there might be more positions opening up. They're getting into something that'll be bigger and cooler a year down the road.
Okay, for this slide, when I do interviews, I exercise my social engineer skills. And so here you want to do some background research on the company. You want to look at their core values, because that's very important for a company. I've realized as I've grown throughout my career. You want to maybe look up their LinkedIn profile for your interviewers. If they give you the names that you're interviewing with, go ahead and look them up. Look up the research that they've done in the past, blogs that they posted, and so on. So that'll give you something to talk to the interviewer about. And if you can talk about something that they're interested in, then that helps you build rapport, and it'll make you feel comfortable as well as you're going through the interview. Also, when you're interviewing with the team, it's good to have questions about how they like working for the company. I usually like to ask, what kind of snacks does the company provide? I don't know. I like doing that so I can see what their reaction is like, what kind of personalities they have, because you're really going to be working with these guys, especially in our industry, in very close-knit groups, and you want to be able to enjoy working with them. With GuidePoint, we talk to each other even off hours, and we hang out with each other. So it's great cohesion. So you want to look for something like that. Ask questions about the company. Look up their core values. That's really important for GuidePoint. When I looked at their core values, I really liked that they had no jerks right off the bat, and that was something that was really important to me, especially in our industry. You don't want to work with a whole bunch of people who they don't have their ego checked per se, and you're not going to learn from them because they're going to keep their knowledge in their own little box there and not share it with you. So if you're looking to grow with somebody, look for that. Go ahead.
So this next point, I think, is at least for me, is one of the most important of how to carry on a good interview as the hiring manager, is making sure you manage and kind of keep in check your first impressions of the candidate. Because sometimes you can talk to people and they're really anxious. Maybe they're really excited about the job, but they don't want to screw up. Or you just tripped them up on a question that they had on the tip of their tongue, and they've become really flustered. Or maybe they're just kind of awkward and they're not super used to talking to people a lot for long periods of time. Whatever it might be, try not to be a jerk. Keep that first impression in check, and keep in the back of your mind what they're actually interviewing for. Certainly, if someone's easily flustered or really awkward, they have a hard time wording things, maybe they aren't the best fit for a client-facing or public-facing role. But if you're interviewing someone for a technical kind of back office role, or something where they're not going to have to talk to people a lot, other than outside of their team, then the fact that they're getting flustered or are acting a little bit awkward doesn't really matter. Or if you are looking at a role that maybe they're not a super good fit for in that way, but you have other roles open that they wouldn't have to talk to people, or that wouldn't become a problem, keep those in the back of your mind so that later on you might suggest them. If you decide not to go with them for the position they applied for, there might be a similar position where it's just slightly different that they would be a good fit for. And this is something we really try to do with our interviews, and I really, really like just making sure that you're not judging them too harshly on soft skills. You hear that a lot with interviews, recommendations. For the interviewee, work on your soft skills, practice, practice, practice. But even some of the people who do a lot of practice leading up to the interview, they talk to themselves in the mirror, whatever works for them, they can still maybe fall apart or become flustered at some point. One of the things that, one of our good tips for interviewing is we actually have on our wiki is if you notice that, try to pick up on that. So like we said, don't be a jerk. Like Summer mentioned, pick up on that, be conscientious of, okay, it looks like we flustered them. let's talk about something else. Talk about their interests. Some project you saw they worked on their resume. Whatever, guide them away from that to get them talking again, and then go back to those technical subjects once they're kind of back in their zone and comfortable. And really, we at the last point here, drives home. Engage in that genuine dialogue. Don't just rattle off a bunch of questions to them and expect that you're both going to have a good time and they're going to come away with a good impression of you and the team and the company if you just spent 45 minutes throwing questions at them and then thank them and hung up. Actually engage them in dialogue so you can judge that fit and let the team talk to them. I know when I had my second interview with GuidePoint, we had that team interview, and I think 45 minutes of the 1 hour interview was just nothing but me and Adam talking about password cracking. And AJ and Victor were like, whatever, just let's just go with it. This is good, and it let them see, was I going to be a good fit for the team, what were my interests, and it was just everyone had a good time, and we were all pretty happy, at the end of it.
Yeah, remember with first impressions, it's also they're making an impression on you. I'm the kind of person that if you rattle off a whole bunch of questions to me in succession and you don't sound very happy, even if I know the answer, I'm going to get flustered. I'm just going to pause, get flustered. I'm not going to, even if I know the answer, I'm not going to be able to get that out. And sometimes during interviews, well, I can say a lot of times during interviews, because I hate talking about myself, I'll get flustered. So just remember, just take a breath. It's okay. You can still recover. It's fine. And for an example, to reiterate what Chris had just went over, I was with Victor in our tech review, and I got a little flustered. And he actually started talking about my gaming. And so I was like, all right. So we started getting into that, came back around, and then we were good to go at that point. And so even if I was stuck and I kind of looked like that panda up there, we recovered, we made it through, and I'm working for GuidePoint. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, don't make it feel like you're sitting through an exam.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it too, is if they're doing that to you and they know that you're flustered and they just keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, may not want to work for that, and that's a hiring manager, a future hiring manager. You may not want to work for that company. That's kind of a red flag there. So, go ahead.
Yeah. So, a little bit in summaries. These are the GuidePoint core values that Summer mentioned earlier. When she went and she looked up GuidePoint's values, these are the ones that we have on our website. These are the ones that we put out there, and they really encompass everything we do as a team and that the company does as a whole. Just the idea of taking ownership of things. We actually congratulate people. We have a kind of a weekly thing where we talk about so someone will nominate the person who was previously nominate someone for fulfilling these values, and taking ownership of projects, really running with things, making sure that they get completed and not trying to pass the buck on to other people is something we really value. And we've kind of mentioned this with the, wowing the interviewee. That's what we want to do. We want to wow, even just internally, working with each other, trying to be considerate, not being jerks, and just always making sure that we, kind of rise to the challenge. Sounds a little bit cheesy, but if something's going on, that we, step in, we help each other. All of those values are very important to us and something that helps us function as a team. So it's not even just so much things that we would like to see; it's stuff that we need to actually work well together. And we constantly, like Summer said, we talk to each other after hours, we hang out, we play games together, but we're constantly, chattering back and forth during the day. Like we mentioned, we work on the pen testing team. We're on a pen test, we're doing a red team. But there's been, Summer and I worked on red team assessments. We're on site somewhere, and we think we have a shell, and we'd have to just hit up someone else on our team. Like, can someone just help us out right now? We know it's 7 o'clock at night, but we can't get to a laptop right now. Can someone see if this worked, or can someone start taking this somewhere? And there's usually someone that says, yeah, you know what, I'll do that. I'll jump on this project, even though it's not mine. It's not my responsibility. Let me help out. And we get kind of excited about that and help each other and fulfill these values. You have anything to?
No, you pretty much covered it. I mean, having these core values, and it sounds cheesy when you read the core values, but we actually do operate at this level. Everybody really gets along. When we're pushing for writing our reports and so on, we're always we really want to wow the client, take care of them, do our best, give them that value add, and we like that. We like working for our company, and so all these things basically apply on a daily basis for us. It's something that's always in my mind as I'm working. So.
Right.
Can I put you on the spot there?
Oh,
Sure.
Go ahead.
So you found your job through being here at a con,
Yes.
but obviously being at a con, it wasn't really about job search. It was just being at the con and networking and stuff. So what are the 1-2 things that everyone should think about if they're going to a con and realize I might get a job out of this or I might piss off a future employer? What are sort of the things to think about as you're navigating in a con about job search?
Well, I mean, the last part, upsetting a future employer, I usually go by the daily mantra of one of our core values, is don't be a jerk.
Exactly.
Be open to the people that you meet. Don't feel like, oh, this person's a newbie, he doesn't know. Just be open to everyone that you meet. Also, take advantage of opportunities when they pop up. Like I said, I could have walked away from the shiny booth there, and I wouldn't have been a part of GuidePoint and totally happy with everything. Everything worked out for me. I think networking with other people, talking to them, like in Austin, we also have like a very small community. Everybody gets along, everybody's nice to each other, and everybody takes care of each other. That's kind of like our InfoSec community overall, don't you think? And so we appreciate that Higher Grounds actually adds a space for us to go out there and actually, and what was actually really funny is there's the resume writing portion is after this, right? Or resume help, right?
We did some earlier, we'll do some.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, anyhow, they asked me for my resume. I didn't have my resume prepared, so I interviewed with them, and then I ran over and I was like, hey, they want my resume. Can you help me like fix my resume so it's better? So they helped me fix my resume, and I ran back over, handed it to them, so it all worked out. So I would say like take advantage of this opportunity, guys. Don't pass it up.
And I have a piggyback question on that.
Okay.
Sure.
Your earlier slide talked about how to prepare for the interview. You're
Yes.
doing research. You probably don't have that time
Yes.
if you're here. So how would you suggest handling not being as familiar with the company before you're able to sit down and have that conversation?
Not being, well, I honestly.
They can't really hold it against you, right? But,
Yeah,
I mean,
I honestly like looked up GuidePoint on my phone and looked at their LinkedIn profiles and looked at where they were. I think if you're not prepared, at least ask them questions about the company, like what are your core values, things like that.
Yeah, I would say similarly when I went out and I was first talking to like AJ and Ed last year, I was asking them questions about well, what do you do? And I was curious because I was already working in pen testing. I was already doing a lot of the same work that I do now. But what caused me to want to switch was I said, well, I was curious. So, well, here's what I do now. How does this differ from what you do? How do you guys do this? How do you do that? And I really was like I was liking some of the processes he was describing. They were sounding, really. I liked their workflow, everything about it. We just got talking more and more about GuidePoint, and it was only later that AJ approached me about the idea of applying for a job, or was I interested? So by then I already had a good idea of what GuidePoint was, and I would say that I like to walk around, and I know people try to tend away, from the vendor booths or things like that because they don't want the sales pitch, or they don't want to deal with it. I kind of like going up and talking to them and just saying, what do you have going on? Like, I'll even shout out to like ReliQuest. I was walking around, and one of their people engaged me, and we got talking about a conversation. He said, actually, hang on a second. He went and grabbed one of his other guys that was just like walking around. He grabbed him, and we had like a cool 20-minute conversation about endpoint protection and things like that was totally unrelated to the booth. I got to know more about like what they do, some of that guy's opinions on things, and we talked for a bit, and it was a pretty good time. That's what I like to do walking around here. So I would say go up to this place, talk to them, engage them in conversation, and should a job opportunity come out of it, maybe you're a bit more prepared or have some ideas, you can come up on the spot of questions to ask. And to kind of go back to the early one, mostly just to echo what Summer said, is I would say when you're going around a conference, whether it's a larger conference like this, or a smaller B-Sides in a local area, or just a local security group meetup, don't be a jerk is a really good is just a really good value to carry around with you. Because if you're doing your best not to just be a jerk to people, and you're kind of nice and you just communicate well, and if you don't want to talk to someone, just gracefully leave, what have you. Don't be ruffle anyone's feathers, and you don't really have to worry about the idea that someone is going to hate you because they remember you from a conference where you ticked them off earlier. But same wise, if you're talking to someone and you realize that I would say keep your own record of who you talk to and what you think of those companies, because oftentimes you'll run into those same people. It's a small world. You can find those people at new companies or things like that, and you might have a general idea of, oh, you talked to them when they were at a previous company. What were they like? Did you like them? Is there someone you would like to work with or for? So just being open to the opportunity and just generally being nice and engaging people on an actual personal level, having genuine conversations.
Yeah, definitely engage each other, especially at these conferences. I've found that everyone is like open to talk. Like I can randomly walk up to a person, introduce myself, and then we'll hit off a conversation. It's great. Don't be shy. I mean, I know the first time I was kind of intimidated and I was a little afraid to talk to people. But as soon as I got up and I started talking to people, I made like relationships that have been years long now, where we just communicate on Twitter. Anytime I need help, I know someone can help me. I just reach out to them via Twitter or email, whatever, and they're always happy to share their knowledge. So if you're just entering into the InfoSec community, like don't be afraid to like approach people and ask questions.
And just kind of to add to that too is, just in general, it's almost a little bit off topic, but it is applicable. Is when you're talking to people, go up to introduce yourself, whether you're talking to someone at a booth, and you have kind of a start, a seed of a conversation there because they're at the GuidePoint booth, Front Care booth, whatever. You can talk to them about that. Don't end up playing conference chit chat bingo. Where have you seen any cool talks? Where are you? Try to talk to them, engage them in actual conversation. Follow those threads of what are their interests. What do they do? What do they do for work? What do they do for their hobbies? Are they working on any cool projects? And you might end up with, like Summer said, like a cool new friend or someone at least that you are familiar with. You see at conferences, you can say hi and hang out and have good conversations, rather than more immaterial connections, or you just learn what talks they like to go to or things like that. Kind of actually make a connection, make a friend. Yes, exactly. They have hobbies that aren't sitting at booths. Any other questions?
Yeah.
We kind of.
Do we have any questions for our Chris or Summer? It's
Nope.
3:00 and everyone's looking for the brownies, is what that is. Chris, Summer, thank you. Thank you so much for all of your help.